still lots and lots of stuff to be able to plant throughout the summer months. And then I just want to be available to answer any questions people may have and sort of see how we can protect this time of year. So the real problem with heat is when we get like at nighttime, the low is like 90 degrees. So many plants, when it's around 105, which isn't that unusual for us, the plants actually stop breathing. And so plants, if we were to look at them all microscopically, have lungs. They have what are called stomata. They'll breathe. That's how they take in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. And that's also when they transpire water too. And so many plants, those lungs, those stomata, just completely close when it's 105 above. And so actually, even though it's like warm and hot in June, July, many plants don't have any growth. They're just in complete survival mode. And especially when they never get to relieve themselves from the temperatures too. So you may notice that things actually seem slower in the warmer months, in the extreme warm months and days, than like right now. So right now is ideal. We're getting like mid 90s is the high. I mean, I should say right now, but it's predicted to be 105, I think, tomorrow, is the high. But at nighttime, we're getting down in the high 60s, 70s. And so those plants are probably every time you come out to see them, you're like, wow, like they're just really growing and putting on a lot of growth. And putting on a lot of growth. And so the shade cloth helps for two reasons. Our intense sun, that UV radiation, can actually like burn plant leaves, but also as you're growing things like tomatoes or peppers, eggplant, you're probably noticing the side that's exposed to the sun may be getting a little sunburnt or sun scald. And so having the shade cloth just kind of takes the edge off to prevent that sunburn. Because nothing's worse than, especially on peppers, they seem really sensitive. You finally get a pepper. And it's like you've been watching it, waiting it. Two things are terrible. When a squirrel or a bunny or a bird gets to it. But the second is when it's like one whole side is sunburned. And so then it's just like really kind of almost rotten on that side. And so, as a gardener, you've learned not to be squeamish, and so you just cut that part off and still eat it. But it's still very disappointing. And so having some shade structure. And so with shade comes in all shapes, sizes, as we can just see here. Shade is usually made as a percentage of blocking the sun. And so it can be anywhere from 20%, you can find some stuff, to 80%. And so that 70-80% is usually made for structure, like a patio structure or something. And so for the garden, that's almost too much shade because our plants still need the sunlight to grow. And those fruits, like the tomatoes and eggplant stuff, they need the sun to actually mature. And so if you block out too much of that sun, things aren't going to mature. And so generally, I think for the Phoenix area, around 50% shade blockage is good. And then I love this example behind Lillian. So what they've done is on the side, on the west side, they've draped the shade there. So sun rises in the east, and so that morning sun is still getting to that whole bed. Morning sun is far less intense. That's why we suggest you come out early. And it's far less intense than the setting sun. So 3, 4, 5 o'clock, that western setting sun is just beating down. And so if you're going to kind of drape your shade, is to have more on the west side. So you still get the morning sun. And, places like this, or maybe if your own backyard, you can't always choose like the most ideal spot, maybe where, the pool is, or like, there's other structures. And so you just kind of want to work with your environment, your landscape, to sort of have that western exposure shaded in the afternoon. And so if you could choose like your ideal spot. So
you're welcome.
Maybe that's what you charge more rent for, like these that get, because so here, like this building shades quite a bit of things as well. So, or maybe you, in your yard, you have a big tree that'll shade. And so I've kind of, in my own garden, designed that I have a big mulberry tree that provides tons of shade. And so from like about 3:30 on, the garden beds are in full shade. In the winter, that really sucks, because in the winter is when you want lots of sun. we just have shorter days and less sun. But mulberry trees are one that drop the leaves in the winter, so I get a little more. Thanks. That was by design. Things too. So the other thing is, so it kind of takes the edge off and prevents that sunburn, and that's fine. It also sort of cool your garden bed quite significantly too, to have shade on it. The other thing you can do to cool sort of the microclimate in your garden bed is to make sure it's full. And I'm not picking on anyone. So this bed over here doesn't have a whole lot in it. This third bed here, that dark soil is just completely exposed to the sun, and that is going to be significantly hotter than the one behind it that doesn't have any shade, but it's very full and lush. And so those plants are shading the ground. Where I see lots of melons have big melon vines and things help shade the ground. You can also use mulch, wood chips or straw or something will help shade that ground. And all that shade too prevents, we're constantly losing water from the soil. And so that's why I'm sure you hound all the time, you gotta water, because you're losing all of it throughout the day. And so exposed is gonna obviously lose so much more of that quicker than if it's nice and full. And you can probably now it's pretty cool, but like this fourth bed here that's so full, if you were to feel that soil under there, it probably feels really nice. The one concern about mulch or straw is that's where little bugs can hide out, and bad bugs. So I'm curious if anyone's seen squash bugs here yet.
Lucas, where are you?
Yeah. They started.
So I feel when we first started here, it used to be the first or second week of June, and now it's earlier. And I, in my own garden yesterday, saw some little babies. And so this is part of warmer winters and climate change, is that those bugs and the eggs and things don't die off like they used to. And so squash bugs particularly love to hide in all that mulch. They can sense you're coming and they'll scatter and sort of hide, and you'll see the damage. And so, particularly with squash bugs, that's the reason even more to plant your squash in late February. And so if you did that, you should have been harvesting squash for 3 weeks now, right? And so it's kind of, by the time you're sick of eating zucchini, the bugs are sort of really bad, and so in a couple weeks you just want to take out and tear out all that squash and sort of get rid of the food source for them. And good news, we have second spring, aka monsoon season. You can plant squash again. So, and that's why it's really hard in Phoenix to do pumpkins and butternuts and like the bigger squash that have a very long season, because they're just decimated by the squash bugs. Oh yeah, so your hands are the best. And I know that's really gross, and you just, again, you're gardeners now, you're not squeamish. So, but the best thing is to look for the eggs. And so I can look around and sort of help identify, but they always lay on the underside of the leaves. That's why it's hard to find them. So you gotta lift up those leaves, and always where the little joint of the vein is, they will lay there. And they're just little brown dots. And so you can squish those. You can tear out that part of the leaf. Squash leaves are huge. Tearing out a couple inches of the leaf isn't gonna kill it. So, and then put it in a jar or bucket of soapy water, and then dispose of it that way. And so those eggs, it's like a 7-day cycle of the mate, lay eggs, reproduce. And then it's like it's very quick. And so if you kill off all the eggs, then there's no offspring, and you can sort of slow down that process. Lillian, yeah.
For planting squash in monsoon season, is it necessary to start them ahead of time, or just
No, not necessarily. Squash, you really do best if you just directly put the seed in. And so I'll skip to when to plant for monsoon stuff soon, but yeah, it's not too for squash and stuff to just direct seed those. Yeah.
Here at the garden, when we take off our leaves and the eggs that you were talking about, where specifically should we put those leaves?
Yeah, you shouldn't compost those things, because those critters will come out. So I don't know, Terry can answer that, of to throw things away that will go to the trash.
The leaves, like when we pull the leaves and the squash bugs, if we want to put them in water, where should we put the water and everything when we're done?
Oh, the water?
Well, I mean, just
it's nice to have like soapy water,
right?
Too, because then if you throw the adult bugs in there, then they can't really crawl out and stuff.
The leaves and all that goes into the garbage, into the green garbage.
Okay,
can.
into the green. Okay.
Not into the compost.
No.
Okay. The water, that's interesting. I don't know if they drown.
And that's what I don't know if you have like Dawn soap water around here. It just sort of helps so you can kind of throw it in there and
I would
drown.
Probably throw it on the side somewhere, maybe in the channel.
Dawn if it's Dawn, it's pretty non-toxic. That's what they use to clean up oil spills and things.
Dawn in the red shed.
So I wouldn't worry about like burning or. And honestly, if you kill off the Bermuda, good for you.
Okay.
So don't worry about it. But squash bugs, like I'm not squeamish anymore. I just like go at it and you squishing them and stuff. But they smell like green apple candy.
Oh.
So really gross. But so that's a like evolutionary strategy. It's a defense mechanism. So when they smell that, someone's after us, hide. So that's when they scatter and hide. And so people also use vacuums and suck them up and stuff. But it's kind of like just working with the seasons. There is some seats up here if you want to be in the shade. Okay. So just work with the seasons and know it's going to come, and June is going to be bad. The other pest that comes out a lot is cucumber beetles. Are little. They're actually pretty bugs. They're little tiny beetle that has stripes on it. But the big one here I know we've had, and I have it in my own garden at home now, is spider mites. Anyone seen spider mites? Lillian's shaking her head. Yeah. So spider mites thrive in hot conditions and zero wind and dry conditions. And so I feel like we've had a really breezy spring. It kind of helps to keep spider mites down, but really dry. And so sometimes when people put up their shade, it's creating like just a hot box for spider mites to breed and better. And so you got to keep some airflow with your shade structure too. And so the airflow is good for lots of reasons. It helps prevent fungus and mildews and things as well. And so we don't want to like lock down stuff so much that we don't have airflow. But spider mites are a little red. They're like a pinhead, very small, but when you look at an infestation, you can see them, and they create webbing. And this like the leaves have like a stippled, speckled look to them, and so that's also that webbing is preventing proper photosynthesis to occur and sort of growth, and so it loses its green color, and they're just gross. And it's like the cluster of tomatoes will just have like webbing all around it. So if you have any spider mite evidence, you need to cut those leaves off, not compost, dispose of them in the trash. And then your tool that you used, your hands, too, can transport and carry that. So you need to clean those tools and wash your hands, and just to prevent it from the next thing you touch of getting spider mites too. You can hose stuff down too. Neem oil is something you probably have around here and use for aphids and other problems. It's kind of a catch-all great thing. The problem with using neem oil and some of those things when it's hot is it can really burn the plants. And so you'd want to apply that in the evening, and so that they have several hours for it to take effect and isn't going to like burn up the leaves of the plants. But honestly, spider mites, sometimes the best thing is to get rid of that plant that it's on and properly dispose of it and start over. So I've battled it a lot. Sometimes it's just keeping on top of it for the next couple weeks so you can get some harvest and then cut it out and start over. And the monsoon season and the high humidity and stuff that we'll get certainly will help that too. It's really a problem like May, June with spider mites. So hopefully they're not too bad. I don't know.
I read that our moringa trees are a super attractor of spider mites, and Jillian and I have been trying.
Yeah.
We might to get rid of them.
Yeah, I would agree.
I did not know there was a season. It seems like all year round.
Yeah, it does seem like all year round. I would say that it seems worse, or like, I don't know, Lorna, you think it seems worse when it's the hot, like May, June time. So affects more of the vegetables, but it can affect stuff year round, and it gets on cypress trees and other stuff bad too. So those are some pests. We talked about mulch and shade. Any questions
Well,
think.
pests.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
a lot of people, the gardeners that are here, they're getting the good guys too.
Oh yeah, so I shouldn't.
So, yeah.
Not all bugs are bad.
Right.
And so you probably noticed in like March, the ladybugs wake up and start coming out. And you should really, I don't have pictures here, but look at pictures of what ladybug teenagers look like. Because they look like aliens and they look like something you need to kill because they just look weird. It doesn't look like a ladybug. And so bugs go through a whole life cycle and they can really change their shape. And so looking at the younger stages of those things and the eggs too, because sometimes when you see little round balls of eggs, you know, when it's squash bugs and cucumber beetles, those are the eggs you want to crush and get rid of. Leaf hoppers you probably have around the pomegranates. Like those are the things you want to kill those eggs. So if you recognize what ladybug eggs look like, then you keep those are the good guys because they eat other bugs. And I wish I should have brought my portfolio with the pictures of those things.
Could we put those on GroupWorks?
That's true. Yeah, I can send you my file that just has the life cycle and eggs.
Do one post with just good ones and then another post with bad. Like, don't put them on the same because I'll mess them up.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have praying mantis.
Yes, praying mantis are great. I know out there we had tons of egg sacs, and so they eat stuff too. They're also big enough they can take down bees, but you know,
Mine are like
you're an omnivore too, I'm sure. Yeah. So when they're very little, like it's fine. Lacewings are little green flying bugs, and most of the time you think flying bugs are sort of these different kind of hoverflies and things that suck at plants, but lacewings are really good, and their wings do look like lace, and their eggs are fascinating. They kind of have a little silky string and then a little white ball at the end, very tiny, and a cluster of them, and that's why in ladybug eggs and stuff too, that's why I don't really like to hose everything down all the time to prevent bugs, because then you're also hosing down all those eggs and stuff too. Leaf hoppers are a big bug that's pretty funky looking, but they pierce and like suck out tomato juices and pomegranates and fruit they're really bad about, and so those have a really like shiny eggs that are all in a line, and those are bad.
I'm doing an experiment
Yeah.
that I picked that pomegranate tree and I threw some like little netting over the fruit.
Okay.
To try to keep leaf hoppers and all those off doing what you're talking about.
Yeah. So
See if it works.
They
Ready?
just pierce that. fruit
It's
and
like
suck it out.
like a nylon. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if nylons are popular anymore, but it's
Oh, like pantyhose?
actually
Yeah.
went around blossoms in a bouquet of flowers. Where did you get those from? From a florist. So
Yeah, so and then
I have a whole bunch
a
of
lot
them.
of the like jewelry bags that have a little ribbon string or organza, those can work. So if you have tomatoes or a cluster of tomatoes, and I don't know if you get too many birds, probably.
Right now, we got a lot.
Yeah, and I would say the birds are always the worst in this heat, like mid-June to mid-May to through June. They're thirsty too, right? So where's the drink? In those tomatoes. And so for tomatoes, they really, they're tuned in and have evolved to tune into the red. And so the yellow and orange varieties of tomatoes usually are less vulnerable to birds. I would say that's not a foolproof thing, but that's why some of the netting can help. You probably noticed with the netting, you're tangled up in it, and so birds get tangled up into it, and there's nothing grosser than having to deal with that. And yeah, well, that's true. And lizards, I don't know that we really ever had lizards here, but like at my house, I don't use bird netting at all because I have tons of lizards. Lizards eat bugs too. They're kind of like, the bugs that eat the bees. They're sort of non-discriminate in what they eat, but it's good to have lizards around. And so they can very easily get caught up in the bird netting. So if you have that as your insect treatment, then don't use the netting.
One more pest thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And this year seemed to be rather prevalent is the black widow spider.
Oh.
And people were going berserk when they saw the black widow spiders. And
Yeah.
well, they kind of do a service. The
Yes,
spiders
they
do
do.
a service
Yeah.
for us.
They do. And that's what, proper identification of what they look like at different stages, so you can avoid just keeping the webbing down from areas like, where the hose spigots are and stuff, where you're going to reach your hands and stuff, and things. But those are pretty bad around here, and I think some of that's related to the winter freezes never being bad, and so they just start, their breeding cycle is just constant then, and so they spread. So I would say that this year in general, spiders have been thriving, like just all kinds of species of spiders. And you're right, like just you can see it in these pillars here of just all the bugs and things that they catch and stuff. And so a lot of you may be noticing, like especially on stems of peppers and eggplants, little white fuzz. Those are Lorna, help me out. What? Yeah.
C-I...
Yeah, it's a type of little fly.
Yeah.
Cixid? Is that what it is?
Like, not silly flies, but the ones that get later hit the hormones, or
No. It's just like little hover bugs. Cixid?
I've never taken them off. I just leave them and let them.
Yeah, it's not really like a big thing, but sometimes you feel like there's just little stuff flying all around and things, and so that's kind of what gets caught in the spider webs, and those white eggs you can see on the stems. And if it bothers you, just rub it with your finger and take care of it.
Have you been having any issues with leaf-footed bugs? They have been bananas this last year.
Yeah.
And are there any controls above? I just end up picking them and drowning them, and then looking for their eggs and the nymphs. Anything else that I could be doing?
I don't know. I haven't had that problem. Too, it's sort of, I think when you really target the eggs is a good strategy because it sort of interrupts that breeding cycle. Because they're pretty fast, and so then you can, have like a couple weeks off, and then if you miss some, then you'll have the adults causing problems and stuff too. So that's where having these photos to identify different eggs would be useful. And again, those are increasingly bad problems because of the winters being mild.
Now I've seen a few that we're doing the pomegranates, and they tend to go towards the nightshades, like the eggplants and the tomatoes.
Yeah,
And they piercing.
Pierce and suck it out.
Yeah.
And so, and so that's what, we need a good freeze in the winter to help with some of that. Yeah.
Hi, I'm having a problem with bugs. They're eating my leaves, and I will use my old grandmother's way, the mothballs.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
That's good?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, it also keeps cats away. We have stray cats who get in.
I have this cat. I got a security camera on my patio part.
Yeah.
And I see this cat, and he was just always sitting there looking at my food, and I'm like, okay, is he at the food or is he after the animals that's within the food?
Well, sometimes usually it's the birds they're getting to, but they're big-bodied animals. So I've had many tomato. No, not really at night. I don't know.
It's at night when I see them and stuff.
Yeah, but I know out here they'd stalk the birds, and then you'd find feathers everywhere.
Did you hear that, Lucas?
But they can snap off tomatoes and stems just as they're like running around, and so it's best to keep them out of the garden. Also, if cat poo is very dangerous, particularly for pregnant women and the disease they carry. That's why litter boxes are to be avoided. And so around food stuff, I just think,
pigeons. I've did everything possible. I even covered up my food and stuff, but the pigeons still come over in that area.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of the compost or whatever.
Well, they're after stuff or thirsty too. With birds, I don't think you have any here. Scare tape is sometimes enough.
What's scare tape?
It's like a holographic tape, or you could use pie tins or something shiny. And stuff that you just kind of hang around. I mean, it looks a little weird. You have trash in your garden, but it sort of helps keep things away, and just like it reflects in the wind just a little bit, and it's like a mirror. What's that? It's called scare tape. Bird scare tape.
So basically,
so she's got some on her trowel here, and so it's like a mirror.
Yeah.
And so if you find mirrors in the dollar store or something too, you could do maybe that look a little more artsy and not
It's just reflective tape.
And so, but when it's just strips of it, it's like blowing and keeps them away. And honestly, like when the monsoon happens and there's more moisture and more other things, then the bird problems seem to dissipate a little bit, and that's why my mom has bird feeders at her house, and I was like, why are you just bringing the problem? So I would say,
bread. I'm like, okay, hold it. Who's the person throwing out the bread?
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, we're in a compost.
Yeah, don't invite
apartment building, and how all these pigeons are sitting there waiting for someone to feed them. And it's like, cut it out.
Well, and that's what too. The sunflowers, when they start setting the seeds, the birds will come to that. And so, in some way, maybe there's some signs to that they're like on something else and not on your tomatoes, but I say just keep them away as much as possible. There's also these, like, maybe that's what the garden should get, these sounds that only certain animals can hear. That's more of a thing for squirrels and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's these sonic, like, sounds, and so it just keeps gophers. We don't have that problem here. Yeah, and stuff, and so,
What about the bunny rabbit? If anybody sees that,
yeah.
I've seen it in the cameras. You mentioned in
Oh,
the
really?
cameras.
Yeah.
And so he's around, and there's cats. There's cats around too.
Yeah, and so that
Yeah, all night long. They're everywhere.
you need a 24-hour feed.
And I don't want to alarm anyone, but I saw a rat yesterday.
Oh, roof rat?
That's the first one I've seen in a long
Yeah.
time. Long time. Over there by the compost.
By the compost.
I don't have to go by the compost.
Yeah. So I'll move on before I take too much time. Is just what some of the things you can plant. That's the beautiful thing about Phoenix is we can do something all the time. So if you had something that died, or if you have to pull your squash because of the bugs, there's something you can replace it with. And so there's always tons of flowers and things. I'm going to just pass this around. It's a great perpetual garden calendar. I'm going to show the cover of it if I can find the cover. So this is a local gardener growing in the garden who created this. And so it's a great resource. I don't know how much it was. You could get one for the garden too. But so it'll show you, this is kind of the stuff you should be harvesting this month. And then these are the things that you can plant this month. So sweet potatoes, I'll talk about more in a second. Snake beans or Chinese long beans are a type of cowpea or black-eyed pea. All of those really tolerate the heat well. Great green foliage. Some of them are vining and so can help create some shade. Those Malabar spinach, is anyone growing that this year? Yeah. I'm trying it. You're trying it. So I don't like what it tastes like. It's very thick. It's not spinach. So, but the leafy greens are not something that really tolerate anything above 85 too well. So definitely in the summer we're leafy green poor, but Malabar spinach is an option. Amaranth. I'm pretty sure Lillian probably has amaranth out there. You can see what looks like beautiful red amaranth. Which is an edible green leaf, and the seeds are edible. Roselle hibiscus, Jamaica, the drink, the tea, is really thrives in the heat of the summer. And then you can harvest the calyx or the little fruits in October.
So we can plant, like today I can plant some.
You can plant some, yeah. So I have some seeds, yeah. The one thing about that is gets a huge bush. And so you can maybe find communal areas to put some of that in. Edamame, green beans don't tolerate the heat too much, but edamame, soybeans do well. Okra is a great one. I'm sure Lauren has got some okra. Okra is beautiful. It gets tall and helps create some microclimate shade. Cucumbers. I would say, I don't know, anyone really had a cucumber success other than Armenian cucumbers. The sort of slicing cucumbers, Persian type cucumbers are really hard in Phoenix. You can do them again in August, September for fall planting, but the Armenian cucumbers is what you want to grow, especially now and just in general in Phoenix. They come in, there's a couple different types, light green. I like the dark green ones, painted serpent or green striped it's called. And technically they're a melon. They're botanically related to a melon, not a cucumber, but we eat them like cucumbers. We eat the seeds and everything, and they kind of taste like a very mild melon, like a cucumber. All the black-eyed peas, cowpeas, basil. You can never have too much basil. There's like 50 different kinds of basil out there. Cantaloupe and melons, for sure. So watermelons really kind of in April better. They're a much longer season. And nothing's worse than a watery melon you harvest in October. Melons love the heat. You want to be harvesting them in August, early September. And so planting those melons now. And it's fine if you have already planted some of this stuff. This is just what you can continue to do. And then, of course, tons of flowers. Zinnias do great. Sunflowers all are great things. So we'll pass this around. And then I'll just go this way with... This is a similar calendar from the Master Gardeners. So you can look at May and see some other options. Or you can look at, okay, I want to grow celery. I don't know why, but that's what I picked. And then you can see what month you grew celery. You can see what month is best to plant the celery. Not now. That would be some gross celery. So you can look at this one.
That for the
too.
gardeners, it's already on our reports.
Depends how much it is.
So I don't know, is anyone growing sweet potatoes? So another one, when we have very few leafy greens, sweet potato greens are edible. So not regular potatoes, russets, Yukon Gold, red potatoes do not eat those greens. Sweet potatoes are a completely different species. And so I have a bunch of sweet potato slips to share. If you're gonna go potatoes, you're always gonna have potatoes. So just be aware, you have to literally dig out every little piece. Otherwise you're just gonna, if you leave any behind. So in your raised bed might be a challenge. It's like, I've said this before, do not plant mint in your raised bed. It's not as bad as mint, but
Did you hear that, Cassandra?
and stuff. So what I did with these, and this is something fun you can do at home, is it's a little tray of soil, and had the potatoes were sprouting in the cupboard from Thanksgiving. These are store-bought sweet potatoes. So then I just nestled them in this soil and kept it moist, and then those little eyes, those little sprouts that were came off, and then I would, let me try to do this one. I'd pick them off, like this one even kind of rooted. Pick them off, and then stick them in some water for a couple weeks, and then it'll grow more roots, and then these are ready to be planted and go. And so with these, you want the roots to develop, not, they're going to grow leaves. So you want to fertilize with something that's going to promote roots, which would be something like bone meal, for example. And so we want tubers on them. We want the roots to grow. And so happy to share these. As well, you don't need, you could do a whole bed of potatoes, I guess. But the thing about the sweet potatoes, they're going to be in there until at least October, November. And so it's, going to take up your real estate for quite a while. And if you're familiar, as you become familiar with the planting calendars, we want to plant our winter stuff in early October. So it's sort of a disconnect in seasons. But like Lillian uses the grow bags, these would be great in the grow bags or something like that, where you kind of keep them isolated. Then you can just dump out the bag and search for your potatoes.
Don't you need to start piling the dirt?
Not so much on sweet potatoes, on the like potatoes, the white and red and yellow ones. It's better to keep burying the foliage on them. Do you bury your sweet potatoes, Lorna?
I have never planted them.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, okay.
Not yet.
I thought you were.
We have. They do very well.
Do you bury them as they go, or?
No, only the
they
others.
These will
Only
make
the
like a
others.
vine almost, and it kind of spill out.
You see them in landscaping. Everywhere.
Yeah, so those are like the decorative potatoes, and if you were to dig that up, it would have some tubers on them, but they're not the edible kind. I mean, when the zombies hit and you need something to eat, like, we can eat those things. But yeah,
I had a lot of success with sweet potatoes last year, and it's because I let the vines just trail and go wherever they wanted, and they will stick down new roots and grow more tubers.
Okay, that's a good. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. We had that at the other garden, Native Health Garden too. Yeah, so where the vine will meet the soil and moisture, it'll start a new thing. And it's so easy to get new plants, as they're growing. And so if I would, I have some growing that are bigger. You could take a cutting, put it in water, and sort of share, and it's sort of something you always have. And they're very heat tolerant. Full sun, no shade. I mean, you don't need to. So
Phoenix
it's a very
full sun.
Yes,
Yeah.
Phoenix full sun. Yeah. So that's why I'm bringing it up as a very easy thing for people when you can't always maintain stuff. Is the sweet potatoes, and then and don't forget to eat the greens. Yeah, back here.
I just want to offer, I picked this seed catalog up at Sprouts for $12, and I'm going to leave it here on the back table. It's from Rare Seeds, and there's an order form. You can do it online, but if anyone wants to flip through it, it'll be back there.
Yeah, literally like the biggest, I think, diversity of stuff from that company.
My only thing about that one, we're a very unique environment.
Yeah, and so some things are not,
That's totally the wrong time here.
They're out of Missouri.
Yeah, just think backwards.
And that's what sometimes the best thing to grow is what your neighbor has success with. But okra and the black-eyed peas realm, melons is kind of the thing to go for now. And again, so I didn't mention, I'm sorry, I'll get to you. Monsoon season typically starts the end of July, or the end of June. With climate change, it's kind of been later and later things. But that will bring cool temperatures at night, the humidity, just even if it doesn't rain on your spot, just like storms around sort of help relieve some of that. That doesn't mean it's not going to reach 120 some days, but we'll have some relief. And so a lot of these summer things you can plant again. I usually do see what August is looking like. I feel like July is still too hot, and the rains here in Phoenix, they really quite haven't picked up. You look at the radar and it's like it's raining in Tucson again. Like they just always seem to get the storms. And so kind of see what August is looking like and plant more. And so through September, so I do more cucumbers, more summer squash, more tomatoes, because that's what I love. You could even put more peppers in. Just know those tomatoes and peppers, an eggplant if you do more, will need sort of coverage in November, December, January. But kind of the overwintered of those things do better than if you plant them in February. But I like to get the more summer squash and cucumbers going. Or you could do green beans. What else you could do? More summer stuff. So, I mean, if you love lettuce and broccoli and all that, wait till, end of September to do that. So you can't do both of those things. You can't do monsoon, kind of warm season stuff, and the cooler season broccoli, lettuce, turnips, beets, and stuff too, because you just don't have enough space because they're gonna overlap. So your monsoon planted stuff is really harvesting in October, November, and I just keep that going because sometimes we don't get a freeze till January. And so
I was just gonna say, I encourage people, if you have home spaces, use grow bags to extend your seasons.
Yeah.
So if you're going to try and plant the monsoon season and the fall season, you can start things like the greens, the leafy greens for the fall, in the grow bags.
It's true.
And succession plant them.
Yeah, and then just keep cycling things through the system, and so you don't have very much time where there's like nothing really growing, and it's sort of taking some time. And so that's what always with the fall stuff, I do lots of starts rather than direct seed, just because you kind of get that summer stuff as long as you can, and then flip it with plants. Other questions, or I'm happy to. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I was just curious if there was a way to propagate the sweet potato without the greens. Do you have to wait for them to sprout first?
Typically, yeah. Some people just bury a potato, like those people who have, in the Midwest and what. You don't have to work at all. You just bury the potato and then it'll grow. But the problem is like each potato will do tons and tons of eyes, and it'll just be very crowded. And so either thinning them out later or something. And then, especially with the other potatoes, people cut and you kind of, the side that's cut, let it scar over a little and separate it. But it can just grow too dense and then you won't get good productivity on it. But I mean, if you've thrown a sweet potato in the compost, that's probably the best thing. It's something you didn't even work at and grow. But it just might not do much tuber growth is what we're after. And so you do want to space them out probably, at least a foot. I don't know what the rules say, but
A foot.
yeah. What?
A foot.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, especially they're going to kind of vine over. But that can really help shade your bed too if you have like a raised bed with them.
Yeah.
Is then those sweet potato vines can help shade, create some microclimates is what you're after. Because then think about if you have raised beds, those boxes are just getting heat from all angles, whereas if you're in the ground, like where Lillian is, like it's sort of going to be much cooler in the ground. And that's why the containers and clustering them or having bigger containers and grow bags like all clustered together can help create microclimates rather than have each one kind of on its own is just sort of baking in the heat.
So
Yeah.
thank you very much for
Thanks,
being
Tim.
here.
Wow.
I didn't get to properly introduce her. This is Dr. Melissa Peeples. She has a doctorate in anthropology
Yes.
from ASU. And so she really knows her stuff. Something she didn't talk a lot about today is seed saving.
Oh, I didn't know. We could do a whole
And
class on that.
We can do a whole class on that. And I mentioned that because Telly-Ann and I and Jerry, we've been saving seeds from all your stuff around here. And it always, just so you might not realize this, gardeners, it does take money to run this place. So we do a few fundraisers. So we have some seeds over there somewhere. Telly-Ann put together.
They're all right here.
A question for you, Melissa, that I had. There are certain plants you put in to help your soil to bring stuff back in.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
And you put it in this time of year, right?
Yeah, if you're not gonna sort of intensively manage and want to keep up with harvesting like tomatoes and these things, you can grow a cover crop or something that's gonna prevent the soil from just being bare, open to the elements. All those microorganisms without water and sort of activity are gonna die off. And so having it covered with something is better than nothing. And so that's where like the cowpeas, black-eyed peas are a great cover crop. You could do, I'm forgetting, buckwheat is another one.
Oh, that's an interesting.
Yeah.
We tried that.
And
We tried that to feed the chickens with the wheat. You know, they looked at it, they didn't know what it was. Like,
and so, like especially in the bean family, or peas would be good in the winter, but they don't really grow in the summer here. And so when all that green mass is there and you're ready to plant, like say you want to plant in August, or maybe just for 2 months you have something, you can take all that green and just chop it up and like mix it back into the soil. And so it's making nutrients that, you know, transforming them that weren't available in the soil to make them more active, alive in the soil.
so I say that. I know there are some gardeners who have decided not to plant some stuff once this is gone. They're going to let it go for a couple months.
Yeah.
Until September-ish. He told me September.
Okay. Yeah.
For example.
Yeah. Like so, if you want to wait for the lettuce,
But what you can't do is just let it sit there because the soil will die.
Yes. And the soil is alive, and you want to keep it alive.
Keep it
and
alive.
Keep it sort of cycling those nutrients so they're available when you are ready to plant.
And watering, we do irrigation here. And for the new people here, that's what all these tanks are back behind us. We just got irrigation yesterday. And in the summer months, we use a lot more.
Yes.
And we got really close to not having enough already in May.
Oh, okay.
And I know I've added all of these beds out here, so I'm trying to figure out capacity and things like that. So there's always city water is what I'm going to say. But we try to keep an eye on it to keep the tanks full for you all. But please, please, please don't leave it dripping. Turn it off, and then that helps us all out. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I guess I didn't talk about watering too much.
Yeah.
You gotta water deeply. You want to see
Hear
it
that,
come out
Jerry?
the water. You gotta
Hear that,
water
Jerry?
deeply.
Water deeply.
And so one that's encouraging the roots to follow that water and go deep. And so when you have 110 degrees, those plants have deeper roots so they can survive those fluctuations in temperature. And then also as we lose so much water from the top, if you just are watering and it's getting just a few inches in, that's all going to be gone by the next time you visit. So you cannot water too much. I know I have students say, I thought I didn't want to overwater. It's like you cannot, if you have drainage in the pot.
That's right.
And you see water coming out, then you can stop. But you cannot water too much. I mean, if you put succulents in there, you can water too much. But that's not what you're growing.
That's not what you're growing.
So, yes.
Can you poke holes in the soil?
Yeah.
Will that bring it down
Yeah, you can
quicker?
do that. There's a lot of like products out there that you can sort of DIY something different. They called like water spikes. They're tree spikes that have little. It's basically a PVC tube with holes in the side. So then you fill that and it'll get deeper. Some of those terracotta spikes are Oyas. I don't know if anyone's ever done that here.
Yeah, they have done it. I don't see any right now.
Yeah, and so you basically bury a terracotta jar.
Right.
And so it works by like osmosis, or just if the soil's dry, it's going to suck more water out of the jar. So it kind of keep a constant moisture. I wouldn't rely too heavily on those because it's like you still need to come and water.
Definitely.
And different things too, but
which leads me to my next. Thank you.
Yeah,
nice segue.
Okay. We're a team.
There's a lot of flowers and things around here. It makes it look really pretty. You need your pollinators.
Yes, exactly.
And all of that. and there's only just a few people here that are watering those flowers. So if you're willing, let me know, write me, or if you see a plant that doesn't look good, please water it. She just told you you can't overwater it.
Yeah.
And you know, there's certain people that do far more than others when it comes to that, and I don't want to burn them out for the summer.
Yeah.
So you know who you are. You know I know who you are, and thank you very much for all you do, because we've had a great year with the flowers.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
And you do need those flowers. Also, that's where the good bugs are laying their eggs, and it's just.
We have our
helps
third
the
hive.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah, so we now have 3 hives,
Cool.
and that just happens. I didn't do my normal spiel beforehand about Phoenix Beautiful.
Oh, you can do that now.
Yeah, thank you. So this whole facility is put together through Keep Phoenix Beautiful, of which Cindy, our camera person, right there, and I work for. And we're the local affiliate of Keep America Beautiful. So we do anti-littering and recycling, volunteerism, which is what, there's a bunch of you here today. Appreciate that. And beautification, gardeners, you clap, that's you.
Yay.
Because this is turning this vacant space into something. As we go into the summer, I'm not going to have any more classes here, and it's just too hot. Nobody wants to sit here. We'll start again. Did we do August last year? I think we did. To get your soils ready.
I felt like Lorna did that one.
I think so. It was like the end of the summer, like leading up to the fall planting season.
Right. I think we had one in August, so it'll be a couple months before we have another one. Keep an eye on GroupWorks or the emails I try to send you. The volunteerism, the second Saturday, Cindy, we are also probably stopping, I know June and I know July. So we may have another one in August, but there's always things to do. So if you really, really want to volunteer, you can come here early on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, and we'll find something for you to do. Some things that are happening here in the garden that you're going to see, these, we're going to have a structure built over these water tanks here. So that's going to be this coming week, and you'll see that go in. We're going to celebrate, right, Cindy, the 40th anniversary of Keep Phoenix Beautiful.
When's that?
Sometime in November. It's what we were talking about yesterday, so we'll be getting that ready.
Isn't it the 5th anniversary of the garden?
It's actually the 6th.
What?
Yeah, it was the 6th anniversary in February when we started here.
Yeah.
It'll be the first anniversary of the house moving, which most people here don't know about it. Yay! Let's see, there is some other improvements that are coming, and I'll let you know how that happens. Another very generous donor is helping us with some things, so that's good.
Yeah, that's great.
Still don't have power, but we're working on it.
Yeah.
Since I have so many of you here, just be very careful when you're here. If you're here by yourself, close that gate behind you and maybe lock it when you're in here. We've had some people just kind of walking through. We have the security cameras that are up here, so I'm keeping an eye on things. And I see people walking in the middle of the night.
Oh, the netting. Keep the netting tidy.
Yeah, and so you don't trip on the netting. I think I'm going to get a different kind of netting. There's some of it over there that won't be exactly the same, but I'm working on that. Cindy, anything else for Keep Phoenix Beautiful? Okay. This video will be posted, so you'll be taking the test at home. No. So everything is there, and we made several with Lorna, with Melissa, some of the classes. You can go back through, and they're in there. We also have our own page, right? I don't know if it's open to the public. I can't remember where we post these YouTube videos.
It's open.
It's open to anybody. Yeah. So you can go back and see. Like AJ had the Oh Grow Up series, which is for kids. Really?
It worked for me, and I'm an adult,
adults with kids.
I kept it really simple.
I can't think of anything else. I thank you very much for being here. Whenever you're out here, make sure you bring your water and your sunscreen, because I don't want to find you here and have to deal with that. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm available if you have other questions, or I I'm only on Instagram. The desert smells like veggies. Happy to help.
It's fantastically wonderful. You gotta see it. She's very funny.
Okay.
I gotta ask you about your next door neighbor. I love that series.
Okay.
But thank you.
I'm gonna join